All right, guys, welcome back to another video. So first of all, update on yesterday's video with State of Decay 3. We talked about how in one of the people working on the game in their ArtStation profile, they had put that the game was targeting a 2027 release date. And right off the bat, you think about that, seems kind of crazy because they did show this game or announce it at the 2020 Xbox showcase. That would mean like a 6-7 year development cycle. Probably is not what people would be expecting from the next upcoming State of Decay. Now, I thought that if it was coming out in 2027, this isn't a big deal in general, just because Xbox has so many first party games that they're releasing. They have to spread them out. That's just what the way that they should go about putting these releases out. You don't want to jam everything into 1 or 2 years. You want to make sure there's steady flows of first party day and date games launching into Xbox Game Pass. And they absolutely have more than enough first party studios now to be able to get those 4 games out at the minimum per year. And State of Decay 3 pushing it to 2027 would just, to me, indicate they probably have a lot of stuff coming out between now and 2027. So they would be okay with putting that game out that late. And so late, it would be nearing the end of the generation for the Xbox Series X and S. Well, it looks like the 2027 year for the game was an absurd thing, as it probably isn't true. As Jess Corden here on Twitter says, State of Decay 3 is targeting 2027 from the art profile previously is incorrect, by the way. So that kind of changes my entire perspective for this game. Now I'm sitting here and I'm expecting to see something from it at Xbox's showcase in 2024, because it's been at least 4 years now since we heard about this game, since we knew it was in development. Undead Labs did a great job at eventually getting State of Decay 2 to a state where it is a fun, great game, great survival zombie game. And I really do enjoy it. But now with them under Xbox fully integrated, having all of the resources, having all of the technology, and the knowledge from people working there at Xbox from other studios that could potentially help with this game, I'm expecting State of Decay 3 to be a much bigger game, a much better game, and just something to really impress us. So I'm hoping that we do see it in 2024. If it isn't targeting 2027, I think that a 2025 release date just makes a ton more sense for this game, because we already know that there are some big ones coming out in 2024, unless this is a late 2024 game as well. So we will see, but it looks like you probably aren't going to have to wait until 2027 to get your hands on State of Decay 3, which I know a lot of people will be happy to see. Now, when it comes to other release dates that have been essentially revealed by that ArtStation website, Blizzard, their survival horror game that they are working on, a brand new game in the Blizzard universe, not in any of the other franchises that we have seen. It looks like that is also going to be targeting a 2027 release date. This here comes from a report from Insider Gaming saying that the unannounced game's lead environment artist Dan John Cox had put 2027 as a potential release date for the project under the production section of his ArtStation page. So ArtStation 2027, 2 days straight here, have lots of links, and we will see if this is true whenever Blizzard eventually does announce this game, when we do eventually see it. If it is actually targeting 2027, we will not be seeing anything about this survival game from Blizzard in a number of years. And it's just another big first party game added in to the Xbox catalog, of course, when this deal closes with Activision Blizzard and all of that stuff comes to an end. And I mean, we're in the beginning of October now. It is going to be coming to an end very shortly, and then we can really start focusing and looking at the games that are going to be upcoming from these Activision Blizzard studios when they will be launching into Xbox Game Pass and all of that fun stuff, all the good stuff as to why people were excited when this acquisition was announced. Now let's jump over here. Let's talk a little bit Sony news. Sony has announced another Spider-Man 2 PlayStation 5 console bundle, and they previously had that special edition bundle with the Spider-Man plates, the Spider-Man controller, and it included a copy of Spider-Man 2. That was a pretty cool looking console, but this one is just a regular PlayStation 5, this new bundle that they have announced with a copy of Spider-Man 2. And the reason we're talking about this is because this is what PlayStation has continued to do with all of their first party releases, have bundles with these big first party games so that they can go out there and increase the overall attachment rate and install base for their first party games. And it just looks like, especially when they're talking to investors, that a ton of more people have purchased Spider-Man 2, even if this is the only bundle available to them and they're just looking for a PlayStation 5. Now, people are looking at this bundle as well, and they're kind of disappointed here that they decided to do this instead of just releasing more of the limited edition bundles, as well as more of those Spider-Man 2 console plates, face plates, whatever you want to call them, that you put on the side of your PS5 if you already own a PS5. Those are pretty limited, and people are angry that they aren't releasing more of those, but instead pushing this here. And I can almost guarantee you, going into the holiday season, this is going to be the primary bundle that's available. Even if people don't even want to play Spider-Man, people don't even know about the game, they just want a PS5. Maybe they're buying it for their kids or whatever. This is going to be the primary bundle that is going to be pushed onto consumers going into holiday season, which is going to absolutely boost those Spider-Man 2 sales. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't think I'm saying that Spider-Man 2 isn't going to sell well unless this bundle. Spider-Man 2 is going to be insane in the amount of people that do buy this game. But we do need to keep in mind, it's still going to be a smaller fraction of the install base for the PlayStation 5 compared to how big some of these major third-party games sell, like a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Spider-Man, though, also has that addition of the Marvel IP, the Spider-Man IP, that gives it an extra boost on top of games that are solely PlayStation IPs like The Last of Us or God of War, which still sell very well, but Spider-Man is just has that extra Marvel name to it, which people love to go out and buy. And the reason we're talking about this as well, with the whole attachment rate with the first-party games with PlayStation, I think there were some stats out there where on average it was around 12% and even less for some games for first-party purchases by PlayStation 5 or PlayStation users. And we know PlayStation is transferring over to building out more games as a service. And there was a report here that came out after we heard about Jim Ryan retiring, stepping down, pushed out, whatever you want to call it, that the first party Sony studios were reportedly uncomfortable with the pivot towards games as a service. So Sony went out, they bought Bungie. That was their ace in the hole, where they were going to use that studio and make a ton of money off a game like Destiny, then be able to build up more games as a service game. We know that Marathon game that they are working on, their games are going to be multi-platform, as they said when they were purchased, that they only agreed to the purchase so that they were multi-platform, but they're going to make these games that keep people engaged and playing for a very long time and continuously spending money. And that's going to help PlayStation grow, pivot, and kind of be able to compete with things like Xbox Game Pass and the diverse lineup of games that they have, from games as a service to even their single player RPGs like Starfield, their just overall single player games in general, and their multiplayer shooters, all that type of stuff that PlayStation really doesn't have. They have their third person cinematic shorter games that you're essentially one and done after you've beaten the story. And that is a problem going forward with the development costs continuing to rise. It is going to be harder for them to be able to sustain that. So this story comes out, and it's not very surprising, right? If you're somebody who works at one of the PlayStation studios, you've been known for some of the highest quality cinematic third-person action and adventure games in the entire industry. Being told that you're going to now have to start focusing some of your resources onto games as a service going forward, probably it has you a little bit annoyed. But at the same time, I think this is the right move for Sony, whether it's games as a service or multiplayer or just any other kind of game out there that's different from what they have. I think is a smart and a good move for Sony to have going forward. I mean, there's a lot of people who love to tout the fact that PlayStation has these great first party games. The fanboys love it. And I like a lot of their games as well. The issue here is it's still such a small percentage of the people actually purchasing them for the PlayStation 5 compared to all of the other games that are out there, specifically third party. So Sony kind of has to have a division within their game studios that make games like a Call of Duty, make games like a Destiny, which they do have now with Bungie, where it's these games that will have a much bigger install base and people will be playing them for years and years to come. And they're going to be able to take these games and push them out onto other platforms as well, like PC, which they're starting to do here as well with their current first party titles. They're single player games, but they're going to have to expand out to PC. They're going to have to expand out in the types of games that they make. And the thing here at Sony too is that they have such a crazy back catalog of games that they just haven't tapped into. And if they do start tapping into that and they give a product that people are really excited about and people will enjoy playing, I feel like that they have everything that they need currently within their studios and within their IPs to be able to just continue to build out their big cinematic games and then have these other games as different genres, multiplayer games as a service to complement it with recurring money so that they can feel less risk with the amount of it's going to cost to just make these one and done games, these third person action adventure games. So I feel like that's kind of where Sony is pivoting towards, but the people at the studios there don't seem to be very comfortable with it, even though it's almost something that they're going to have to do, especially when their main competitor, Xbox, has a diverse range of games and they have the best subscription service, the best cloud gaming, and they're about to add one of the biggest mobile sections with games like Candy Crush and Diablo Immortal and Call of Duty Mobile and Warzone Mobile, all of that stuff into the Xbox lineup is going to give them just a huge advantage. Sony knows that, and that's why they are making this pivot. And in fact, we have this from 2022. It was updated back in 2022, some of the numbers when it comes to the actual first party versus third party game sales on the PlayStation platform. And this is covering up to fiscal year 21. It probably hasn't changed that much in the numbers. In fact, maybe it's even decreased. I'm not exactly sure, but you can just take a quick look here at some of these numbers, right? Like third party games, 86% of the game sales in fiscal year 2021 versus only 14% of that being first party. And we take a look at this in terms of the amount in millions of units, that equates to 259 million units of third party versus 43 million of first party. And this here is exactly why they have to pivot. These numbers here are proof that they do need to pivot and expand out their portfolio. They need to increase that attachment rate of first party games, whether that means only on the PlayStation or on multiple different platforms. That percentage absolutely needs to increase so they can bring in more money to continue to make these $200 million plus games that they cost to develop, or they're just going to continue here with the virtuous cycle and only put out the same stuff over and over and over again. And eventually, I think that's another position that they are starting to see. Fans are wanting more. They're wanting more than the continuous stuff that they are putting out there. So we'll see what happens. I think Sony is going down the right track right now, believe it or not, even though Jim Ryan did potentially get forced out. They said he retired, but I think that they're going to have to make the pivot. And I don't see another CEO coming in here and cutting off all of the games as a services games that they want to make or multiplayer games that they want to make. All right, let's talk about this Alan Wake 2. Excited for this game. It is coming out on October 27th, and we have an update here for the Xbox Series S game modes that will be available. And unfortunately, if you are on the Xbox Series S, you will not have a 60 frames per second performance mode. There will only be the quality mode at 30 frames per second. Fact says an update here. Remedy spokesperson has told Game Informer that there will be no performance mode for Alan Wake 2 on the Xbox Series S. Now, we know that there is a performance mode on the PlayStation 5 and the Series X. This is a tweet here from Thomas Pua, who is the communications director at Remedy, saying, "I'm glad to say that Alan Wake 2 will have a performance mode on PS5 and Xbox Series X. The game has been built from the beginning as a 30 FPS experience, focusing on visuals and ambience, but somehow we have managed to include a solid performance mode. We will talk details later." So, I mean, if you're on the Series S, I guess the silver lining here is that they built this game from the beginning to be played at 30 frames per second with quality and the ambience and everything like that. So there's probably a good chance that it is a solid 30 frames per second and that they've done a decent job of getting you that ambience to come out from the Series S, even though it is the lower powered console. And it's more of a survival horror game, right? It is a slower game kind of reminds me about the Medium, one of the first only built for the next gen games that release on the Xbox Series X. And it was only in 30 frames per second. And I was absolutely fine playing that game in 30 frames per second because it was a much slower game. It was all about the environments, the ambience, and the quality of the graphics to be able to see every little detail of the game, all of the little features in it, all the little things that you gathered, your weapons, the enemies. That was what made that game good. That's what made that game interesting to play, the atmosphere of it, or at least I enjoyed it. I know some people did enjoy it, but I enjoyed that game. And for Alan Wake 2, I feel like it's going to be a similar thing there, that it's all about the environments and the ambience. So 30 frames per second probably isn't going to be a bad experience with a game like this. And finally, let's just end off talking about this. Platinum Games. As we know, Hideki Kamiya has left Platinum Games. I like the work Hideki Kamiya has done. But before he left, they were working on Project GG, which was going to be a big game, something that they really haven't done before in terms of the scope and everything. And he finally commented on this on Twitter, his first comment since he actually left Platinum Games. And here is what he says. I can only speak in the abstract, but I don't think that Project GG would have become a project of scale it is today if it was just my idea alone. Project GG started when I first presented the core game. That core is also contained in the teaser trailer. To put it simply, I was only thinking about what was in that video. The way we expanded from there had a lot to do with President and CEO Atsushi Inaba's big ambitions. Rather than creating a single game, Inaba's proposal was to say, this is the kind of game Platinum Game is going to make from now on. In response to this, I said, I see we could certainly realize this in the way that would flesh out the core of Project GG, and we expanded it into a large-scale project that it is today. I personally did not expect the game to take this form. So Project GG is seemingly going to be a much bigger game than we usually see from Platinum. Like you think about Bayonetta, very closed off, linear action games, fun games. I absolutely love Bayonetta, but they aren't these huge open world style of adventures. And maybe that's what they're going for here with Project GG. And the reason I guess he's saying that if it was just him, it wouldn't turn to that, because this was seemingly going to be a successor to some of his previous works like Beautiful Joe and The Wonderful 101. So we will see what comes out of this. I'm excited to see what comes next from Platinum Games. They've had hits, they've had misses. They really either are really good games or really bad games, it seems, that comes from them, or the debacle that Scalebound was, where it didn't even come out. That's probably never going to ever happen now for sure. So we'll see what this Project GG is. Kamiya leaving is still something that's interesting to keep your eye on, because is he starting a new studio? Is he going to continue to work on games? All of these things we still don't know yet, but I'm assuming he is going to stay in the industry and do something. But I'm going to leave the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Bye.